Can you explain the concept of post-traumatic growth? The concept of post-traumatic growth has been going on since the beginning of time. When we really look at history, philosophy, many people have explained this concept of going through a struggle and trial in their life, and how do you come through that on the other side of this. In the mid-90s, Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun were researched. They were trying to find wisdom. So they started interviewing people that had been through some things in life, right? So they started looking at widows and interviewing them and what they did to overcome their struggle. They started interviewing people that had gone blind, people that had lost limbs, people that had lost children. They started interviewing them, and they gathered together all these answers for them, and they found that they started clustering their answers into groups. They kind of matched them, and they narrowed it down to 5 general groups, and they call them domains. And so when I teach this with the theory, I'm a visual person, so I like to use metaphors and acronyms, and so I give visual stories basically around my book, Trial Tappers, of a sugar maple tree, but basically how do you tap inside of you symbolically to pull out the pain. When we look at, I use the acronym TRIALS, TRIALS, to teach the concept. Because I know a lot of people struggle to remember things, and people may forget what we talk about today. But if we can remember this acronym and what it means, you're going to understand the theory of post-traumatic growth. So first off, we call the letter T for trials, is what we call the trial action path. So I explain this to many of my clients that come in, that you're in pain and it's going to get a little bit harder before it gets better. That journey, that path, the trial action path takes deliberate actions. And we're going to teach you some things to help you get to the other side. But you can't skip the fact that it's going to be difficult. An example of this would be when I was working with domestic violence women in Colorado. We'd explain to them that on average, most women would leave their partner and go back about 7 times before they left for good. So understanding that and trying to help them. So when I would work with them, and I'd say, okay, you're not happy right now and you're planning to leave this relationship. We got a safety plan in place, some things in order, but in reality, it's going to get harder before it gets better, right? You're going to not have money. You're not going to have a place to live. You may even get lonely and want to go back to that partner. So we have to help them understand it's going to get harder before it gets better on the other end. And I see this over and over with all the people. So I started working with people, and that's what I started writing my books about, and the stories of these people that have gone through things, and it gets harder. And I experienced the same thing. So when I went through my trial, I explained that it got a little bit harder before it got better, and I can explain that a little bit more. The next letter in the acronym TRIALS is the letter R, which stands for relationships. When we look at the biggest group or area that people find growth in is in their relationships, reconnecting with other people. Just they find that people came into their lives that helped them through this trial. And it's sometimes people you don't expect. I know in my experience, there are people that came forward to me that I wasn't expecting to help, maybe coworkers that came to me, friends that came forward, and some that didn't come forward. And when I look at them, I just have to give some of those people a pass who maybe they just didn't know what to do at the time. But that's where I find I had a lot of growth and help, and it was in my relationships, particularly with my spouse. The next letter in the word trials is a TRIs for inspiration. So many people in these cluster groups started finding this inspiration or religious or experiential or existential connection with nature. Now that's kind of the second biggest area people find growth is in that. And as a therapist, I would find people that would move towards and move away from the religious part. Now, I find I struggled a little bit with the religious part after my trial, but I found a lot of support in my going out into nature, working in my garden, spending time there. Many people will experience that, and I just tell people as they're going through a struggle, I know some people move away and some move towards. Just don't take any extremes, but many people find support there. The next letter in the word trials is the letter A for appreciation. So many people were able to identify that they had this new appreciation for life, new appreciation for just things in general. An example would be when I was working with a woman that had cancer. Afterwards, we went through everything, and then she explains that this is the best thing that ever happened to me. And you might ask, well, how's that possible? But she explained this concept that she was able to experience life, appreciate her kids, appreciate nature, snow, just every day that she had left. And when we look at that experience, it's very common you hear this with people. I know for me, I started appreciating my other brothers and sisters that were still here with me, and many people identify this new appreciation. And it's often when I'm working with people that they're so fixated on their struggle and what's happening right now, they kind of get blinders on and they don't really see anything beyond them. And what I'm trying to help them to do is maybe do gratitude journals. I often do this a timeline with them. I'm very visual, so I use like a cut tree to explain the rings of the tree, and you really don't understand the concept of what happened to that tree until it's end of its life. And I try to help people pull back and look at their entire life and the struggles they've gone through and the struggles they're going to go through and the things that have gone well and the things they're looking forward to. Just trying to help them expand their view. The next letter in the word trials is letter L for limitless possibilities. This is a very common theme we hear with people that they look at what are the new opportunities for them in their world after this. Now, sure, things have been tragic, but what is this opened up for them? In 2002, I worked as a volunteer with the Paralympics, and I was able to help the Paralympic athletes. And at one point, I was the one who put the flag holders on all the wheelchairs for the medalists for the different countries. And when talking with them and them explaining to me, like I was just an average person, and then this happened to me, and now I'm traveling the world. Now I'm a gold medalist or silver medalist. And to see that things have changed, their opportunities have opened up to them. And when I talk with people that they have been through some struggle, and now they're like, I'm going to write a book about this. I'm going on speaking tours. I'm going to go join this organization. This is opening up these limitless possibilities. I know my experience before my brother's death, I was never on social media. I didn't have an intention to write any books. And yet that pushed me and opened me up into all my YouTube channels, my books, going out and speaking, going around the country. So now this opportunity to start the Post-Traumatic Growth Project has opened up these new limitless possibilities for me. The last letter in the word trials is the S, which stands for strength. And many people identified this newfound personal strength in their life, that they were able to say, if I could get through this, then I can get through anything. Or I saw those people go through this and they went through it, and so I think I can go through mine. And they find this new strength. In my experience with my brother, for example, I even had this struggle. As my books were getting ready to come out, we had to decide, do I leave in the information just about my brother's death by suicide, or do I also put in the information about my sexual abuse as a child? And I struggled with this back and forth. My therapist, like, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I need to. Until eventually I realized that my perpetrator had kept me silent most of my life, and I was not going to let him keep me silent anymore. So I went, talked to police, filed reports, and what I found is the individual lived fairly close to me, and it was going to be a struggle that if I ran into him again. So I ended up going back to therapy to try to work through that. So circling back to the first letter T, the trial action path, where I say it can get harder before it gets better. That's an example of me that I realized, okay, just coming forward was one thing. The fact that they were in my community and I needed to tell people, and now tell my family and friends, it got a little bit harder before it got better. So that's the concept of post-traumatic growth.